Next, we have Class 201A of Summer Heifer Calves, calved on or after May 1st of 2023. This is a 2-entry class. We have an entry from Jillian Knepp and Bethany Strach. That is a completed class, Class 201. We do have our judge returning from yesterday's Catch It Calf show. That is Mr. Colby Hales. He hails from Wyoming. We appreciate Colby coming down again today to judge the Pound Maker and South Devon show.
This is such a unique heifer that we've pulled out to win the class. And in terms of her body, in terms of her size, in terms of her look, her hip, she's got a very traditional build to me. But when you look at her soundness, her bone work, her front end, she's got a very modern look to me. So I think she combines some of the best of what I would consider some of the features, the traits, the genetics of the past with some of these more modern, it looks like, features that you've bred into these cattle. And I don't know that I've seen many that put that together just like she does. And here's what I mean. This heifer's extremely powerful. Huge top, huge body, and a good body. I mean, tons of forerib, center body, lower depth. But look at how she stands on that back leg with so much flexibility there on her pastern, but so stout and so powerful in the way she drops out of that hip. Lots of bone, lots of just authority when she moves, the freedom and the flexibility. And you don't expect, after you see that top and body, to go up front and see that kind of neck set, that kind of shoulder, that kind of femininity. So I think that one brings a lot of real unique parts and pieces together that I'm not sure we've seen combined in one heifer. Young lady, you get your heifer set up a little better there, and she'll give you a nice look. You've got her a little awkward there. Step her up a little bit and give us a better look at that heifer. Set your heifer up a little better for us. There you go. You've got a heifer that deserves to be shown off. That heifer's got a beautiful future. I think she's so complete. I think she's so solid. She's fundamentally sound in terms of her structure, her body, her muscle. Today she shows you a little more crest on the top side of that neck. She's not as powerful and as massive as that heifer in front of her, but this heifer could have won a lot of classes today. I think she's that caliber. I think she's that kind. I want to encourage you to do a real good job with that heifer. I think she's going to be a lot of fun. Here's one of the taller heifers that we have in the class. In fact, the tallest heifer that we have. I prefer the cattle, the mini cattle that have a little more of that size because of the extra length it typically gives me, but this is an exception. This heifer's probably pushing the envelope for me a little bit in terms of frame size in the mini Hereford breed. And I think the biggest thing that I see with that, as much as I like her phenotype, as much as I admire her femininity, as much as I love the stretch and levelness, with that extra frame also has to come the body to accommodate it. And in this class, she reads with a little more tightness, a little more shallowness down in the lower third of that rib cage. So to really match her up and balance her out, we're going to have to get a little more lower third in her. But boy, from a design standpoint, from a length standpoint, she's lights out. Today, maybe not handling those back legs the best. Here's a more moderate heifer that I think does have an advantage in body. She is really good in her rib cage, super down in the lower third of her body, a little more compact in her kind, wants to get up in her top today. I don't call her just as good in her pattern, as good in her skeleton, but a real massive, real good, real broody kind of heifer right there. Here comes a powerhouse around the corner now. This dark red heifer is loaded up with power. The body, the mass, the width, the bone, I love it. To accommodate that, I want to give her a shot more look and pizzazz. I'd love to stretch her out and clean her up in that front end, tone her down in that tail head. Pair of gentlemen here that are wrapping up the class, got a little one that's got her whole life in front of her. She is wild-fronted, she's feminine, she's beautiful in her design. She just needs a little TLC. Let's keep her in front of a feed pan and come back in 90, 120 days, and I promise you we won't recognize that heifer. Congratulations to all these exhibitors.
Well,
folks, over here on the South Devon and the Pound Maker side. Good morning to everybody, and thank you very much to the National Western for allowing me to come out and sort through the junior show here today. And a really good first class, and to my understanding, a division here this morning. Got a pair of heifers that I think both do a lot of things really, really well. We're going to go ahead and lead off with the red heifer. She'll end up going to go ahead and be this division champion. A calf that I think, just in regards to her structure, her balance, her build, that's her big advantage over the black heifer that's going to go ahead and be reserved. The heifer that wins, she's a little smoother right there through her shoulder. The levelness out through her hip and the flexibility to her hind leg, to me, is her big advantage. A really nice project there for the young lady. Excited to see how she stacks up here in just a little bit in this pound maker division. The young lady's black heifer that's going to go ahead and end up being second and reserve in this division. Hey, if you like them a little stouter than me, you probably switch this pair, no doubt. The black heifer's got more muscle. She has more power. I like that about that heifer. But with that, she becomes a little bit rounder built. That heifer, I wish we could lengthen her out right there out of her hip, level her out of her hip, just make her a little more comfortable there in terms of her top line once we get her set into motion. But a very, very nice first class. Let's go ahead and give those guys a nice hand.
Your results in the miniature Hereford show from Class 104A Early Spring Junior Heifer Calves. In 6th place, Randy Clements. 5th place, Taryn Blessed. 4th place, Hat City Cattle Company. 3rd place, Amelia Stewart. 2nd place, Jordan Wilgenbush. And 1st place goes to Bryce White. In the ring for the miniature Hereford show, we now have Class 104B of Early Spring Junior Heifer Calves. These calves were also calved March 1st through the 31st of 2023. We have an entry from Bryce White, Brian Moore, Evie Mitchell, Jody Looney, and 2 entries from Hat City Cattle Company. Over to your Junior Pound Makers show, the results from Class 201A. In 2nd place, we had Jillian Knepp, and your class winner is Bethany Strach. In the ring at this time now is Class 201B. These are late spring heifer calves, calved April 1st through April 30th of 2023. We have a single entry within this class from Addison Kelm.
And a really nice single entry that is, too. A heifer that the young lady's done a great job of getting presented out here. A very good single entry, beautifully presented. I like the stoutness of feature. I like that heifer's power that she's got from behind. The turn to her upper body, I think, is very, very good. You know, if we fix that heifer, I think we could relax her there in terms of her pastern and how she'll utilize her hind leg. But no doubt, a beautifully presented, really attractive feminine heifer here to go ahead and win this particular single entry class. Congratulations to you, young lady.
Over in our South Devon and Pound Makers show, we have in the ring at this time now Class 201C of spring heifer calves, calved March 1st through March 31st of 2023. We'll have an entry from Peyton Volkman, Megan Fellbaum, Jackson Van Haar, and Sierra Steinlicht. This completes Class 201C of spring heifer calves within your Pound Makers South Devon show.
Well, I'm a big fan of the heifer that wins our class over here on the mini Hereford side of things. Extremely powerfully made. Lots of body, lots of muscle shape, big top, big hip, a lot of bone under that heifer, but again, very, very correct from a pattern standpoint. When you start putting that kind of horsepower, that kind of product in them, to keep them that attractive and to keep them that square rumped is quite a feat. I still think she's nice enough balanced up in her front end. We've seen some that are a little longer necked, a little cleaner necked, but she's proportional. She wears it well. I think what's unique about this heifer is her structure. I like the squareness of her hock. I like the way she stands with some width at her hock. And again, for the power that she has, still moves very, very well for me. Gentleman in second place is leading a nice one. Very fresh, very bold in her rib. Lots of body in that heifer. Love the kind of body that she has. It's maternal, it's broody, there's a lot of it. This heifer is extremely clean through her chest, again, clean conditioned. Relative to her size and length, she's extremely long in that hip. She's a sound heifer. The way I think we make this one even better is if we could put the kind of bone in her that is in the first and third place heifer, I think it changes her life. I think it even adds more to her balance. Today it throws it off just a little bit for me. I'd like to stouten her up on that back leg. A big boned heifer, I moved up and down, and that's my fault. I grabbed one girl, meant to grab the other, but really a long-bodied heifer that's got frame and she's got height. Love the extension and stretch, but what really separates the pair in third and fourth is the soundness of structure. This heifer's got a lot of bone on that back leg, but she handles herself so much better on the move, especially in her hock. More correct, more flexible, more athletic, a really nice designed heifer. We'd like to give her a little extra shot of body. I'd give that as an advantage to the heifer that comes around next, especially right there in the lower third of her rib cage. There's more heifer there. There's more drop, there's more power to her body, and I like that about her. Again, as I alluded to, though, when you put her in motion, you don't like her as well as you do on the stand. And I think it starts right there at her pasterns. She really gets up on her tippy toes today, not as flexible in her hock. We just like to see her move out. If you want to put this young lady's heifer next up a spot because of that, I get it. And I wrestled with it myself. She's powerful. A lot of heifer there, a lot of body, a lot of meat and muscle, width at both ends of the skeleton. A very traditionally made heifer that's very moderate. The heifer, for me, she's just pretty thick up through that front end, thick through that neck, not as much width from hooks to pins as those that I've placed higher today. But again, she's sounder, she's powerful, and if she deserves to go up a spot in your mind, I don't give you any argument. I'm a fan of this heifer, and I think she's a good one. And then the young lady's heifer that completes it has got some real interesting parts and pieces. I love the bulge and the expression of muscle that you see. You see muscle down her top, you see some shape and some expression and some dimension of muscle in her hip, yet she's ladylike up through her front end. Now, in between, I don't think she balances up as well. I'd like to just see all those parts blend together a little better, maybe change that tail head and pin setting. I think that'd change her hind leg a little bit. But real good parts and pieces in this heifer that wraps up her class. Good job on this set of mini Hereford heifers. Nice job, exhibitors.
Well, on the South Devon side, a tough class here, a real tough class that I think actually we could dice up a couple different ways, and all answers I think would probably be correct, because I think each of these heifers have some things that we can change, and but also some big class advantages as well. I ended up using this really well presented black heifer to go ahead and start, and I'll tell you up front, I wish we could relax her shoulder and her knee for sure, just in terms of her structure. But I will tell you as well, I think that heifer still collects her top line in a very correct manner. I think that heifer still balances, and outright her biggest advantage is just her substance and her power. The shape and the turn to her body I think is very good, and I still think the way she'll utilize her rear leg I think is adequate. I still think that is a sound structured heifer. Again, could we lay her back in, up through her front end? Absolutely, but I think she's good, and she has a big advantage in terms of power and substance. The heifer here in second, I think, is so smooth and so ladylike. I think that heifer puts together an absolutely beautiful view here from the side. That's actually her advantage over the heifer that wins, is to me she's smoother shouldered. That heifer is much flatter and much thinner in the shape of her neck. The biggest thing to me amongst that pair of heifers is from the side. This heifer's deep enough, she's easy doing enough that you'd expect that she'd come with just a little more power, just a little more substance, but she doesn't. I wish we could square up in how she utilizes her hind leg. That heifer's a little flatter rib. That heifer, it does need more just punch and substance and power there from behind, but a very, very nice representative to be second. The interesting heifer in here is this heifer that ends up in third. I struggle with where we put her, because if we want to be a fortune teller, if we want to be a future reader, this heifer right here, I think, has a world of future. I love where her neck sits into her body. That is a smooth-shouldered, really attractive heifer in terms of the shape and the turn to her lower body. She finishes her look off with a really neat hip and hind leg. I really like that heifer in terms of just her look and her balance and her silhouette. With that, though, and where I talk about future reading, is that heifer is just a little straighter through her shoulder and her knee, and then as well, especially amongst those two that beat her, she is a little bit tighter hearted. She does look a little shallower in relation to her frame size. So do we call her hard doing, or do we say she's just a little skinny right now? I end up putting her third, and understand, young lady, you have a very high quality heifer. I wish she read just a little softer, but congratulations to you and best of luck to you. Again, I hope that heifer makes a whale of a bred female. Young man's Baldy that's going to go ahead and come next. Another one that I think just in terms of shape to her body and her rib, I think is very, very good. Plain and simple, that heifer's got a little more set to her hind leg, a little bigger right there through her tail head. I wish we could give her a little more power right as she goes away, but certainly a good class of 4 there. If you would please help me in congratulating those young people on a job well done.
Well, if you would, keep that round of applause going for what I think is an outstanding division of these mini Hereford heifers. Let them hear from you. We may very well, at the end of the day, look back on this division and think this is one of the wow divisions of the day. What an evenly matched, really, really high quality, good set of heifers. Especially when you've got these heifers parked on the side like this. They are so fun to look at. If you like looking at good cattle, we got some eye candy in the ring. The heifer that won the first class in this division, I think, is totally unique, and that's the word that we use to describe her in that class. Unique because I think she's so traditional in the fundamental qualities that brought the mini Hereford breed to the table. The mass, the body, the softness, the power. She's got all of that, but she blends that with a really modern degree of attractiveness, soundness of structure, and just overall look and pizzazz. And it's hard to put both of those in the same package, so I'm very intrigued with that heifer. You put these heifers in motion, I think she's the sounder heifer of the pair. And even as I say that, by comparison, I think she gives up just a little bit in terms of squareness of rump compared to this heifer that came out of the second class. I love this heifer in second on the stand. So cowy, so maternal, so long relative to her height. And again, you want to talk about what I consider a near perfect hip structure in terms of length, in terms of squareness, in terms of pin setting. She hits the mark for me. I think as powerful as she is, there's not a problem with the way she moves. But by comparison, you'd have to say that she doesn't move as well as that heifer in front. In a real close placing, I don't think you can make a wrong choice, but this one's too unique for me to pass. She's going to be your division champion. Nice job to this young lady, and congratulations on the day you've had today. But we're going to keep our para-class winners together. Congratulations.
Your champion early spring junior heifer calf comes from class 104A of early spring juniors. That entry is entry 4451 from Bryce White. Your reserve early spring junior heifer calf comes from class 104B. That is entry 4450 from Bryce White. We're going to reset the ring, and we'll get it started with 105A of winter junior heifer calves within the miniature Hereford show.
Well, on the pound maker side, as we get into this second division here, a good set of these three here. The one out of the first class, a heifer that I love her freshness. She's so well presented, a heifer that I still think has muscle and power. Once we get her back out here against that older class, she maybe looks just a little shallower. She's probably just a little harder there through her lower body. And then as well, once we get her into motion, that heifer is just a little tighter there in how she'll use her hind leg. But I love her, just the quality that she has up through her front end, the smoothness to her shoulder, a heifer that I still think is darn sure feminine and very, very well presented. The young man's heifer that comes out of the second class, like we talked about her, gosh, she's got a world of power. That heifer has a bunch of punch, and I like her shape, I like her turn, and I think that heifer with that still is sound structured. Now, with that, I do think we could relax her shoulder angle, set her back in her knee there just a little bit for sure. But I still think that heifer has plenty of structure, or structural integrity, I should say. A very nice representative out of that class. The heifer that ends up second in that class, very, very smooth built, very, very feminine featured kind of a heifer. A little flatter and not quite as much just substance, but a good pair of them. And I thought that pair out of that second class was very close. I thought we could have diced those up a couple different ways. So with that being said, because they're so close, we're just going to go ahead and keep them together. Young man out of the second class, you'll be champion. The young lady that was second will go ahead and be reserved. Congratulate those young people, if you will, please.
Over to your pound makers show. In the ring at this time is now Class 202. These are winter heifer calves, calved November 1st through December 31st of 2022. We have a single entry from Sierra Steinlicht. Over to your miniature Hereford show in the North Show ring. In the ring at this time is Class 105A of winter junior heifer calves, calved January 1st through February 28th of 2023. We have an entry from Mesa Arnold, Brian Moore, Hannah Hogan, Berkeley Went, and Bryce White. These are your completed classes within your miniature Hereford show and your pound makers show.
Golly, young lady, I wish you had a couple more heifers to play with you here in this class. We're kind of at an off age of being Novembers and Decembers here, but a great single entry, a heifer that's got a world of quality, beautifully presented. Could we relax her in her spine and her top line just a little bit? Sure, but golly, I think a heifer that's got a world of good. Excited to see how she stacks up here in just a little bit. Congratulations to you, young lady.
In your pound maker show, your results from Class 202, the single entry class. In first place, we have Sierra Steinlicht. At this time, we will bring in Class 204. These are going to be junior yearling heifers calved January 1st through April 30th of 2022. We have a total of 4 entries within this class. We have an entry from Lindsay Strach. We have an entry from Chase D. Terry. We have an entry from Emma Gnecht. And we have an entry from Jillian and Tessa Nip. This completes Class 204 of junior yearling heifers within your pound maker South Devon show.
Continuing on with our next division of the mini Hereford heifers, I think we have a really, really nice one to win the class that's super powerfully made. One of my favorite views of her is kind of a three-dimensional view or three-quarter view. If you can look down the side of that heifer, you get a real appreciation for the way that she combines a lot of top, muscle, hip, width, and thickness with still a beautiful profile and design. That combined with a really good set of feet and legs, the way that she travels around the ring, I think makes her a pretty easy winner. Obviously a beautifully presented, beautifully fit, very fresh conditioned heifer that's got a lot of profile and look to her. This is a real intriguing heifer that comes to us in second. What a uniquely marked heifer with the big spot up on her muzzle. Congratulations, young lady. Good job today. Really a neat made kind of a heifer that I said this in another class. We would probably start a lot of classes with a heifer like this had she not gotten such deep water. But for a more conventional, more traditional sized kind of a heifer, I just love the balance. I love the package. I love the top, the squareness. I love the soundness, especially in this class that she brings to the table. The simple fact of the matter is she just gets out measured by that more powerful heifer that wins the class, but I'm a huge fan of that heifer in second. I think it gets to be a little closer race between our heifers in third and fourth. The heifer in third is a little bigger kind of a heifer that's certainly longer bodied, but more importantly to me than that is her advantage in structure. She's not 100% perfect, but especially on those back legs, she just handles herself better and travels around the ring more comfortably today with a better set to her pastern and hock than does the heifer that follows her. Now, if you think the heifer out in front of us now is more attractive, if you think she's better on the stand, I'm not going to give you a lot of argument. I think that's a very beautifully designed, feminine fronted, good shouldered heifer. It's got a great top line and hip. But as I mentioned, although I like all that bone she has, I'd like to see her set that hind leg down more correctly and move around the ring in better shape. And then a super long-bodied heifer comes around the next that's very clean in her chest, clean in her navel, good in her top line, and boy, does she have a top in her. But everything lays a little tight, even in her spine, even in her hip, and all the way down to the ground. There's just a tightness about that heifer that I'd like to loosen up and see her just move with more freedom and cushion and be a little more comfortable today. Not a last place heifer in that class, folks. That's a solid set of heifers. Good job, exhibitors.
Your results from Class 105A of Winter Junior Heifer Calves. In fifth place, Brian Moore. Fourth place goes to Mesa Arnold. Third place, Bryce White. Second place, Hannah Hogan. And your class winner goes to Berkeley Went. Setting up in the ring at this time is now Class 105B of Winter Junior Heifer Calves within the Miniature Hereford Show. We have an entry from Ava Henderson, Mackenzie Wyrick, Canyon Dops, Reagan Emmons, and Carly Allison. This is your completed second class of 105 division. These calves were calved January 1st through February 28th of 2023.
Well, we're just going to go ahead and reorder them just a little bit different over here on the profile for a placing here. Man, a great class as we get into these big bred heifers. Great class. Really, really like the Brocco heifer that wins. That heifer is so big-bodied. She's so powerful. She's very, very sound structured with that. And yet, here from the side, I love her balance. I love her quality, especially for being a big power cow there. A really neat kind of a heifer to go ahead and win this class. Now, with that, I think where we can maybe make an argument is that heifer's a little bigger there in her knee. She's a little heavier there in terms of condition, and the heifer in second for sure is fresher in that regard, and then she's a little smoother there in terms of her joints. She just doesn't read just quite as soft. At this stage and at this point, I wish we just read just a little more turn right there through the rear third of her body and back through her flank. She's just a little more general there, and then in addition to that, how she'll utilize her hind leg. She'll start to roll out of her hip. She gets a little tighter there in terms of her hind leg, but boy, a beautifully presented, really attractive heifer there, especially up through her front end. A really nice representative to be second. Young lady's heifer that's going to go ahead and be third. I think that's another heifer that, gosh, big-bodied, really easy fleshing, lots of power in that heifer, a heifer that does a lot of things right in that regard. Now with that, she's a little rounder built. She's a little plainer to look at here from the side. I wish we could stouten her up in terms of her foot and her bone work for as much power as she has up through her top and out through her hip. But a heifer that I think, again, does a lot of things really quite well. Young man's heifer that's going to come next, she's just a little green, just a little skinny, and I wish we had more turn through that heifer's flank and lower body, a heifer that I wish had more power, but I love her quality up through her front end. She's so smooth-shouldered and level down her top. A really nice class here of these big bred heifers. Let's go ahead and give them a nice hand as they exit as well.
In your pound maker show, your results for Class 204 of junior yearling heifers. In fourth place, Chase Terry. Third place goes to Jillian and Tessa Knepp. Second place goes to Emma Ganek. And your class winner is Lindsay Strauch. Up next in the Pound Maker South Devon show, we will have our Grand Champion and Reserve Grand Champion drive for our judge Colby Hales to evaluate. Over in your miniature Hereford show ring at this time, we have Class 105B of Winter Junior Heifer Calves. Again, we have entries from Ava Henderson, Mackenzie Weinrich, Kenyon Dops, Reagan Emmons, and Carly Allison. Our judge will select our top individuals from this, and we will bring back our first and seconds from this class as well as Class 105A for our judge to select our champion and reserve champion Winter Junior Heifers. Helping out in the miniature Hereford show, we have our royalty and ambassadors for the miniature Herefords. Our royalty this year for 23-24, we have our national queen, Abby Eldridge, our princess, Madeline Gonzalez. Our junior princess is Journey Harris. Some ambassadors helping out today would be Caleb Spencer, Bristol Pence, Natalie Cartwright, Lexi Heidelbaugh, Walker Wiley, and McKenna Camp. We appreciate our royalty and ambassadors for the miniature Herefords helping out with today's show.
Well, back in our miniature Hereford ring, we've got a young lady with a heifer out here that I think very logically and sensibly finds her way to the top. She's an eye-catching heifer that you like when she comes in. Her and the heifer in second got my attention pretty quickly. But I think the more that you study this heifer, the more she becomes the winner out here today. She'll hit you good on the side. She hits you good from the rear view. But when she wins the class is when you put them in motion. And between the heifers in first and second, she's the heifer that's more flexible and relaxed in her top and at the ground. She sits down better at her pastern. She's more mobile and more athletic in her hock and just in her length of stride. And she combines that advantage in soundness with a lot of power and a lot of look. The heifer that I can just look at for days on the stand is this heifer in second. And honestly, when I saw those heifers on that rear view, that heifer won the contest for me. When you get behind her and look down her top, there is so much heifer there. That heifer has a gigantic top and hip in her, and it is so smooth from shoulder down to that hip. I'm like, we got to look at that one. And so I was pretty fired up. And again, on the stand, she'll fill your eyes up. I mean, she's a knockout on the stand. All that bone, all that freshness, that length, that pizzazz. But the simple fact is when you put her in motion, she wants to get up and get a little tight on those pasterns. That gets up in her top and makes her top rise up. So we just want to loosen her up. But my compliments on a great heifer there. Close placing in first and second. You know, this heifer in third is another good one, and she's got some advantages in soundness of structure over that heifer in second. She's better in her pastern, she's looser in her hock, and she takes a longer step than does our second place heifer. On her own, I love the freshness, I love the femininity, and I love the body. She's good in her top line, she's pretty square and level in that hip. For me in this class, I'd like to see her head match her body a little better. She's a little broad across her face, her forehead for me. Those are maybe a little bit out of balance up in that front end, and I'd like to see a little more bone from that hock down just to kind of complement that big old massive rib cage. But I love the volume, I love the capacity, and I love the soundness of our good third place heifer. Young lady coming around next has got one of the real long-bodied heifers in the class. Relative to her height, she is super extended and stretched out, and I'm really a fan of length of cattle and body, and she's got it. She too's one of the sound stepping, good moving, long striding kind of heifers. Just for me, gives up a little too much balance in a set of real high quality heifers. Not a last place heifer at all here coming around next. Square topped, level inner lines, kind of a heifer, but pretty green out here today, a little bit piecey. I think this is one of those heifers that if we have a little patience with, time's sure going to be her friend. Young man, I think her best days are in front of her. Keep working hard with your heifer. Congratulations, exhibitors. Nice job.
Here we are in the grand drive of our Pound Maker show, and obviously again not huge numbers, but golly, I think there's a lot of really good heifers within this particular breed. I'm excited to work through the South Devons here in just a little bit, and I'm not going to go through and talk each of these division winners to you. Hopefully you've kind of understood what I like about each of them within their respective classes. I think each of these divisions do a lot of things really quite well. There's a pair of them, and actually even three. I'm going to tie in three of them that I think get very close. I'm very confident with what's going to end up being our champion, and then I think reserve gets tight. But two, no doubt, nonetheless, there's three very nice heifers out here that certainly have a chance at champion in reserve. So if you guys would help me, please, go ahead and give these exhibitors one nice big round of applause, and I'll go show you my two favorites.
In your South Devon Pound Makers show, your grand champion comes from Class 204 that has entry 2160 from Lindsay Stroke. Your reserve grand champion comes from Class 202 of Winter Heifer Calves that is entry 2159 from Sierra Steinlicht. Over in your miniature Hereford show, at this time we have our class winners in the ring for our judge to select our champion and reserve grand champion Winter Junior Heifer Calves. The results from Class 105B of Winter Heifers: in 5th place was Carly Allison, 4th place was Ava Henderson, 3rd place was Reagan Emmons, 2nd place was Mackenzie Wyrick, and your class winner was Canyon Dops. So in the ring for consideration for your champion Winter Junior Heifer Calf is Canyon Dops from Class 105B, and from Class 105A we have Berkeley Went.
First and foremost, let's give this division a real nice round of applause. Here's another stout set of them. We're seeing some really, really high quality females, and this is a lot of fun out here this morning. So I just offer my congratulations on such good cattle. I think this is an evenly matched pair, and I sure hope this doesn't sound like a cop-out, but I don't know that you can make a wrong decision here. I just want to explain what I think the real differences are. The heifer that came out of this first class, the darker red heifer, is an extremely good-bodied, long-sided, square-rumped heifer that I think is about the freshest thing out in this division. I think I probably most like that stretch and length that she has with the body mass that she has and the kind of body that she has. Both of these heifers hit me really good in terms of muscle, in terms of bone, in terms of soundness and structure, but I think of the pair, we've got more heifer here in terms of length, just in terms of that body mass. Is she as pencil-necked as this heifer that comes next in the second class? No, she's not. This heifer's as cool a fronted one maybe as we've seen all day. From the kind of head, the shape of her skull that she has, just that femininity and petiteness up through her face and her jaw, down to that neck, her chest, her shoulder blade. She's made about as good right there as you'll want to see one. She too has plenty of body volume to her, plenty of muscle thickness to her. But if we're really going to nitpick these two heifers, I think she's a little lower in her pin setting than the heifer is in front of her. I think she gives up a rib of length compared to that heifer in front of her. And because those are two such important things to me, I'm going to congratulate these two ladies up front. They'll be your division champion.
Your champion winter junior heifer calf comes from class 105A. That is entry 4443 from Berkeley Went. Rolling into consideration for the reserve will be the second place from that class. That is entry 4344 from Hannah Hogan.
Well, I begin by saying that I didn't think you could make a wrong choice. There's no doubt I'm keeping this pair of heifers together. She'll be reserved. Congratulations.
Your reserve champion winter junior heifer calf within the miniature Hereford show comes from class 105B. That is entry 4325 from Kenyon Dops. At this time, we will get reset in our miniature Hereford show, and we will start with class 106 of fall intermediate heifers. Coming into the ring for the miniature Hereford show, class 106 fall intermediate heifers. They have been calved October 1st through December 31st of 2022. We have 5 total entries within this class. Ty McIntyre, Piper McIntyre, McKenna Camp, Cow Swamp Creek Farms, and Deacon James. This is the only class within the division, so the first and seconds within this class will become your champion and reserve champion fall intermediate heifers. A reminder that all cattle releases come from the barn steward shed located between doors 21 and 22 outside. Releases are required to leave the grounds, so if you are done with your classes, you have to seek out a release from the barn steward shed, again located between bar doors 21 and 22 outside. Once again, releases are required to leave the grounds, so if you are looking to leave, seek out a release.
Well, as we get into a new division of some of these older heifers in our mini Hereford show, I think we got a real sensible place to start here with this heifer that's one of the bigger ones in class, but certainly one of the better ones in class. I like her in terms of her balance, her completeness, the way all of her parts and pieces fit together pretty well today. She maintains a lot of soundness in this particular class with good flexibility there at the ground and in her hock. She's a meaty, powerful kind of a heifer that's got good width at both ends of her skeleton. I like the body volume, the top shape, and the muscle thickness that she has, and still puts it in an eye-appealing package that's pretty easy to look at. The biggest heifer in the class comes to us in second, and she's a nice one as well. I think a real complete kind of a heifer, lots of performance, lots of length of body, a heifer that when he set her up on the stand, maybe not quite as much wow factor through her front end as the heifers in first and third, a heifer that can hit me as being a little straighter in her pastern, maybe a little straighter in her hock as she goes around the ring. But she's one that you got to like really well. Set up on the profile. She's fresh. She's beautifully presented. A real nice heifer to go to us in second. I think the heifer in third is one of the neatest made heifers that we have in the class from a pattern and from a skeleton standpoint. I think she's so good up through the front third of her body. I like the slope of her shoulder. I like the smoothness of her shoulder. I like the way she steps and reaches off of those front legs. She's got height at the point of her shoulder with a lot of levelness and strength through the middle of her back and out through that long square rump. For me, this heifer gives up quite a little bit in terms of bone and mass. She doesn't have as much horsepower in terms of thickness and width as the two heifers in front. I tone her down a little bit in her tail head, but really, really a neat package, a neat made heifer. If you want to watch one here in the next 60, 90 days, I'd keep my eyes on her. I think she's going to get pretty nice. The young lady's heifer coming around next, I think is just more powerful than the heifer that places below her, especially in that rib cage. Bold in her forerib, real deep in the center part of her body. Today, for me, she wants to be quite a little bit lower in her neck set. That takes away from her balance. I like to see her just a little more attractive. Then the young lady that wraps up our class on the end, a real fresh condition kind of a heifer, real green in her flesh out here, presented in a real world kind of a shape. Them two are going to get to be buddies over the next year, and she'll have days that are a little more fun showing that heifer. How about we congratulate this good group of exhibitors in a new division here in your Mini Hereford Show.
Your results from Class 106 of Fall Intermediate Miniature Hereford Heifers. In 5th place, Ty McIntyre. 4th place, Piper McIntyre. 3rd place goes to McKenna Camp. 2nd place, and your reserve Fall Intermediate Heifer is entry 4358 from Deacon James. Your class winner and champion Fall Intermediate Heifer goes to entry 4422 from Cow Swamp Creek Farms. Coming into the ring at this time for the miniature Herefords would be Class 107A of Summer Intermediate Heifers.
As we get into the purebreds over here on the South Devon side, a nice entry, a nice single entry here. A heifer, red heifer that's got plenty of shape and substance and power. I like the turn in that heifer right out of the top and side of her rib, and certainly the dimension out of her hip. She's a little green, she's a little skinny, no doubt, but hey, for a little calf, she's got a lot of quality and a lot of shape and a lot of turn. So congratulations to you, young man. We'll see how she stacks up here in just a little bit. Let's give him a nice hand.
Back over to your South Devon Pound Makers show in Class 101A. Your results, the single entry class winner is Chase Terry of Winchester, Kansas. Set to come into the ring at this time is now Class 101B of late spring heifer calves. They have calved April 1st through April 30th of 2023. We have 3 entries within this class. We have an entry from Madison Holtz, Lindsay Stroke, and Megan Fellbaum. This completes Class 101B of your Junior South Devon Heifer Show in the Purebred Division. Over to the miniature Hereford show ring on the north side here. Again, we have Class 107A of summer intermediate heifers. These heifers were calved July 1st through September 30th of 2022. We have an entry from Brian Moore, Cow Swamp Creek Farms, McKenna Camp, Amelia Cragen, Carly Allison, and Lindley Jex. That is a completed Class 107A of summer intermediate heifers within the miniature Hereford show.
As we get into this second class here, another good set of three. We're going to just reorder them a little different here. Young lady up front is going to go ahead and win, and a heifer that I think her big advantage amongst especially the top pair is structure. I think that heifer is far more comfortable there through her shoulder and her knee. The usage of her hind leg is just a little better. The other big reason she's going to go ahead and win is just her design from the side. She's leveler out of her hip, and like I said, in relation to her structure, she'll actually maintain her top line there quite a bit better in motion. A heifer that I think does a lot of good. Now, where I think it does get close is the heifer in second undeniably has more shape and turn and power to her rib cage and through her lower body. I think she is very good in that regard. And then on top of it, boy, she gets her parked right here from the side, and I love where her neck comes out of her shoulder. She's still very smooth shouldered. And again, I like her turn and I like her power. It's where we get her moving that she's going to go ahead and go second. That heifer's a little shorter and rounder out of her hip. I wish we could set her tail head just a little neater into her body, make her a little more comfortable in how she'll go out of her front end and through her shoulder and knee. But certainly a good pair of heifers here on the top end. I think with that pair gets rather close. And then the young lady's red heifer that's going to go ahead and be third. Young lady, you still have a quality heifer. That's a good female in regards to just her smoothness. She's smooth-shouldered. She's flat-necked. Very, very feminine in the shape of her muscle. She's just a little tight-bodied for me. I wish we could put more turn through the lower third of her body and back through her flank, make her just a little sounder structured as she goes away. But a great class. Let's go ahead and give those young people a nice hand.
Your results in the South Devon Show Class 101B of late spring heifer calves: in third place, Madison Holtz. Second place goes to Lindsay Struck. And your class winner is Megan Fellbaum. We're going to reset the ring for the South Devons, and we will bring in Class 101C of spring heifer calves. These calves were calved March 1st through March 31st of 2023. We'll have a total of 3 entries within this class. We'll have an entry from Addison Kelm, Megan Fellbaum, and Sierra Steinlicht. This completes Class 101C within your South Devon Show.
this is a really, really, really high quality class, especially between our heifers in first and in second. And I think this is a close placing between the two heifers. But the heifer that I'm going to use to win this is so massive and so powerful and so stout. She just overwhelms the rest of this class in that there is so much of her. And you want to talk about the word shape. Here's a heifer that deserves the word shape used on her, especially from where I'm standing looking down her side like this. You see width and shape and bulge and expression of muscle over her rib and loin. You see width and thickness and fullness from her hooks to her pins, and from there down she's got so much width right there in the lower part of her hip, at her hock and at the ground. Yet from the side she's soft-bodied, she's maternal, she's good-shouldered, she's level-hipped. And when you put her in motion, I think she handles herself really well, although from time to time she does want to turn that front left out just a little bit. I'm going to accept that today because I don't see it bother the way that she moves. I think that's a real intriguing heifer here to win the class. And by the way, on a side note, our family and I show cattle and play sports. One reason I think showing cattle's better is because we don't have to stand on the sidelines or watch from the bleachers. We can do it together as a family. That's pretty cool. Give these folks a round of applause. The heifer that comes out here in second, I love her on the stand. Boy, she gives you a cool look. She's fresh, she's long, she's square. Look how much heifer there is from the hook bones back. Relative to her size, that one is extraordinarily long-hipped. Just like our class winner, she's thick, she's got shape. I love the arc and spring to her rib, and she wears it well. She probably stands just a little truer and straighter, especially on that front left foot, and she moves around the ring in good shape. But you know, she's been a little fussy out here right now, but we got a good look at her. The simple fact is she just gets out-measured by that real massive heifer that wins the class, but certainly this is a heifer that could have won a lot today. The heifer that I really, really want to like, and I try to like, and I do like, but is this heifer in third. I just get such a cowy maternal read on her, and it's hard to put in words, but the way her head, her skull, her neck, and her shoulder all blend and transition into that great big rib cage and body, that's good stuff. I think that's mama cow stuff right there. She's so long relative to her height, and you know, you watch this heifer move, and when she'll stop fighting and relax, she's pretty good in her top line. But then when you get down to the ground, she gets herself in trouble there on her pasterns. And she wants to get up on her toes today. She wants to pop her pasterns. She's maybe not quite as square as our heifers in first and second in that rump. But boy, there's a lot of good in that one, and there's a lot of maternal in that one. I'm a big fan of that heifer in third. Young man, you've got a heifer coming around here that's going to make you a nice cow. She's got the right kind of size, the right kind of length. I think for her size and her kind, she's good bone, she's good muscle. She too's a little tighter in the way she moves out of that hip. She's a little lower in her neck set today, but a lot of good cattle right there. Right parts in the right places, I'd say. Our next two heifers, this is as close of a placing as there is. If you want to flip them around, I get it. For my liking, I think there's a little more bone and a little more soundness in the young man's heifer. Yeah, she's a little low-headed. She herself isn't perfect on those back legs, but I still think she moves with more flexibility. I think she's got a better set to that hock. And again, I think she's stouter in terms of her structure and her bone work than is the young lady's heifer that comes around next. Young lady's heifer on the profile is the better-looking one. She's more up-headed, she's got a fancier pattern, she's got a better profile, a little more eye appeal, but it's from a structure standpoint, from a movement standpoint, it's where I want to make her better. I'd love to just give her a little more bone and see her handle that back leg with a little more strength. Congratulations, that's a fun class.
Well, back on the South Devon side, a good class. And when I sit and watch a show from the sideline or have cattle in there myself, one of the big things that I always try to think about is trying to follow where a judge is headed and understand their points and understand where they're going. And so with that, I want to, this class I think deserves a little explanation because the heifer in second is probably just a little more my speed and a little more the direction that I've been heading in terms of just her quality up front and her look and her neck. But in this particular class, where I think our class winner has a major advantage, is to me her structure, her body, and the shape and turn in that heifer is better than the one in second. I'll tell you first and foremost, the heifer that wins, she is a little rounder shouldered. She does got a little more crest right over the top of her neck. But like I said, her big advantage is once we get her set into motion, the way she'll collect her spine and her top line is far better. To me, the way she'll also collect her lower body balance is more correct and much more attractive. A heifer that I think does a lot of things really, really well. That again, to me, she's the better cow long term in this judge's personal opinion. But a good pair of them, because again, the heifer that's going to go ahead and win, she is quite a bit fresher and just a little flatter there through the shape of her neck and through her chest. She's much sharper in terms of her look there through her shoulder and just her front end. Just standing still, I think the set of that heifer's hind leg is more attractive, but that's what makes it really interesting is once we get her into motion, that heifer's a little straighter through her shoulder, she's straighter through her knee, and so she'll pull up right in the middle part of her top line. Her lower body balance will come off in her just a little bit, and then she'll roll just out of her hip ever so slightly. But a really good pair of heifers there on the top end of that class. I congratulate both of those young ladies. And still a heifer that we're going to round out here in third with, a heifer that's got plenty of body and plenty of fleshing ability. I think she makes a plenty fine enough cow long term. For this judge personally, once again, she's got a nickel more set to her hind leg. She's a little sharper there to her hock, and then once we get her in motion, she's the one that probably comes out of balance the most out of any of them. But nonetheless, a very good class, and even though there's just three, we could dice those up a couple different ways. A very nice class. If you would please help me in congratulating those young people.
Within your South Devon show, your Class 101C results. In third place, entry 2167 from Addison Kilm. Second place goes to Sierra Steinlicht. And your class winner goes to entry 2169 from Megan Fellbaum. We will bring into the ring at this time in the South Show Ring, Class 101D of Junior Heifer Calves. This is a single entry class. We have entry 2171 from Emma Knecht. Over to the Miniature Hereford Show, your results from Class 107A. In sixth place was Lindley Jex. Fifth place was McKenna Camp. Fourth place was Carly Allison. Third place, Brian Moore. Second place, Cow Swamp Creek Farms. And your class winner was Amelia Cragen. At this time in the Miniature Hereford Show, we have Class 107B of Summer Intermediate Heifers. These heifers were calved July 1st through September 30th of 2022. We have 5 entries in this class. Entry 4, Wiley Farm LLC, Brenna Thorson, Caleb Spencer, Jim Phillips, and Jaden Wilgenbush. This completes Class 107B of Summer Intermediate Heifers.
We'll jump in here. I know you guys are trying to get a division. We've got a small class. I think we got a real easy winner that comes up here to the top of her class. She's my kind in terms of her size and her length. I love her balance and her eye appeal. Easily the coolest made one, funnest to look at type of heifer that we have. Lots of bone, still handles it well enough in terms of her structure and movement. I think a real nice place to start. Second and third place heifers get a little closer, and I'm going to use the more moderate heifer of the pair because I think she's got more of the balance and phenotype of our class winner. On the side, on the stand, I think she's better. I think she gives you more look. I think she's classier. I think she's better in her lines. I think she's got a more attractive and better kind of rib shape in her than does our heifer that follows her in third. Third place heifer's no doubt a bigger heifer. She's taller fronted, she's longer sided, she's stretchier, and she's got more extension. All things that I love. But on the other side of the coin, she's a little more of a square-headed type of a heifer that doesn't have the mass down in that lower rib cage that we see in our heifer in second. Young man's got a real intriguing heifer that comes out next, and she just loaded up with power. Gigantic top, thick hip, width at both ends of her skeleton. But then again, when you put her in motion, she struggles more. She wants to drop her hips underneath her. She's got more set to her hock. Simply put, I'd like to see her just move out a little better. The gentleman's heifer that completes the class, really a fancy-headed, feminine-fronted kind of a heifer. Really clean in that neck, super good in her chest. A more conventional, more medium-sized type of a heifer. But I guess for me, we'd like to just power her up a little bit to see her run with those heifers up at the top of the class. Thank you.
Well, back over here on the South Devon side, in this particular division, I think we've got 4 cattle that end up making it really, really interesting because I think we have 4 kind of different kinds, if you will. But just kind of talking them through to you so you can understand where I'm coming from and see my mentality. The heifer that wins this first class in this division, I love her structure, I love her build, and I love her skeleton. That heifer, in regards to just her comfort level, her reach, that's where I think that heifer's very good. Now, if you want to pick on that heifer, she is a little flat. I do wish we could make her just a little bolder there in terms of her upper rib, the power that she's got going right away, and even chest width. I think that is where that heifer can be better, but especially between the 2 class winners, where I do like the heifer that wins that first class, the length of her cannon bone, her maturity, and just kind of her phenotypic performance to me is better in that particular regard, and I really like her structure. A nice heifer. The one that's in second there, the reason that pair got close in that class, go ahead and just stay right there, young lady, for just right now. The young lady that is second in that particular class, boy, she counters that heifer that wins in terms of shape and turn and power. But that heifer is a little rounder built, and that's why she ends up going second, but a really nice class. The young lady with the red heifer, I like that heifer in regards to just her fleshing ability, her body, her structure, her fundamental structure. Now, aesthetically, I do think that heifer is a little more upright in her shoulder and down through her knee. Functionally, I think she moves just fine, but once we start kind of picking on that heifer, I think, again, she's got a little more crest to the top side of her neck. I wish we could make her a little girlier up there through her front end and her head, and then even just in regards to her performance, for this judge personally, she is a little quicker pattern, she is a little bit smaller and more moderate in regards to her frame size, but a neat heifer. And then the heifer that's second in that class, she made it very close as well, because I love the look she has up through her front end, a very, very well presented heifer that I think's got a good look, a little shallower bodied, and structurally that heifer isn't quite as right up through her shoulder and her front end. So that's the way I see these heifers, and where I think it can get rather close and it gets rather challenging. To me, the heifers that just suit me just a little better are the 2 out of the first class who go ahead and be champion and reserve within this division. Let's congratulate those 2 young ladies on a job well done.
And now in our division lineup in the Mini Hereford Show, a great pair of heifers. My goodness, our divisions have been good out here this morning, and this continues to be the case. The couple's heifer here out of that first class is ultra, ultra powerful. Gigantic top and hip, good bone, good leg set, but especially powerful in her rib cage. Between the 2 heifers, she's really dominant in terms of her body mass, her depth of rib, and her volume. I not only like the amount of body that she has, but the kind of body that it has. I think it lends to her a more maternal look, a more cowy look, and I'm really drawn to her because of that. We mentioned in class that she might stand just a little truer on that front left, but I don't see any problems at all with the way that heifer stretches and flexes and moves. This is a striking, attractive, sharp-made kind of a heifer here out of the second class. Ultra good in her lines. She's so tall at the point of her shoulder, so much strength and levelness down the middle of her back and out that nice long square hip, and then she comes down to a gigantic leg. Few heifers we've seen today can match her in terms of the bone and the stoutness that she has, and I really think you have to take that into consideration. On the other side of the coin, you also have to recognize this heifer's a little tighter in her rib. She's not as dropped down and massive in the lower third of her body. And so for those reasons, I'm going to go ahead and stick with the heifer out of the first class. They'll be your division champions, followed up by the heifers in second. Congratulations, folks. Good job, sweetheart. Good job.
Your champion summer intermediate heifer comes from Class 107A. That is entry 4322 from Amelia Cragen. Your reserve summer intermediate heifer comes from Class 107B. That is entry 4435 from Brenna Thorson.
Just a single entry class here, but a very good single entry. I think this heifer started at the ground. Just the shape of her feet, her stoutness of feature, and her substance and her power, I think, is good. Yet she still offers a really good look there from the side. And I think once you get right behind this heifer, she's actually really neat. And just the extra width and the extra power she's got to her upper hip and her pin set. You guys sitting along ringside right there can get the best view of her there. I think she is really powerful. She's got a great turn and a great shape. A neat looking feminine heifer here. So let's go ahead and give our nice single entry a nice hand. We'll go ahead and see how she stacks up here in a while.
Over in your Junior South Devon Heifer Show in Class 101D, which was in the ring, which was Junior Heifer Calves in first place, entry 2171 from Emma Knecht. At this time, we have in the ring Class 102, which is Senior Heifer Calves. This is a single entry class. This entry is from Chase Terry of Winchester, Kansas. This heifer has calved April 1st through December 31st of 2022. Over inside your miniature Hereford show, we have Class 108A of spring intermediate heifers. These heifers were calved April 1st through June 30th of 2022. We have 6 entries in this class. We have Brian Moore, Callie Rummel, Hannah Hogan, Jackson Place, Flora Insico, and 4 Wiley Farms. These complete your classes of in the ring at this time.
Single entry red heifer here in our senior heifer calves, and a heifer that I think does some things really, really well. Beautiful fronted, beautiful necked, very, very smooth shouldered, and yet still has a really good turn right out of the upper side of her rib. A heifer that I still like her stoutness of feature and her power. A nice heifer here in a nice single entry class. Let's go ahead and give him a hand.
Results from Class 102 of Senior Heifer Calves within your South Devon show in first place. Entry at 2172 from Chase Terry. Set to enter the ring at this time would now be Class 104. These will be junior yearling heifers calved January 1st through April 30th of 2022. We have an entry from Sierra Steinlicht, Megan Fellbaum, Jillian Knepp, Addison Kelm, and Lauren Zabel. This is your 5 entries making up Class 104 within your South Devon show. while our judges Jake Scott for the miniature Herefords and Colby Hales for the South Devons continue evaluating the classes. The 2024 National Western Stock Show wouldn't be made possible without our generous sponsors. Some of those sponsors include Saunders Construction. Saunders Construction was locally founded in 1972 and is now one of the largest and most stable construction companies in this Centennial state. Saunders offers well-paid positions with opportunities for career growth. Visit www.sanders.com for information on career opportunities. Another sponsor is the Colorado Farm Show. The Colorado Farm Show is proud to support the National Western Stock Show, and they invite you to attend the 58th Colorado Farm Show, taking place January 23rd, 24th, and 25th at the Island Grove Regional Event Center in Greeley, Colorado. Colorado Farm Show brochures are available ringside or at the announcer stand. Complete details are also online at coloradofarmshow.com.
I apologize for the extra time in this class. Thanks to the exhibitors for accommodating me on an extra look, but we'll get to that part of the discussion a little later. Real easy winner for me in this class. She's stout, she's stylish, she's sound, she's high quality. She's really presented nicely. She's in a fun to look at package, but there's just a lot of positives in this heifer. We could say a lot of things about her, and it would all be good. This is a real good place to start. We jump into that heifer in second, and she's fussy. She's not wanting to cooperate out here. But when you get a good read on her, and I have, when you see her stopped and set up, there's a lot of positives. Now, she's a more moderate-built heifer, a little more traditional-sized heifer than our class winner, but she is loaded up with power. Huge top and hip, lots of width to that body. She's really got that classic wide body, mini Hereford shape with good depth to her forerib, good center body depth, and still puts it together in a cool package. Not as extended overall, not as stretched out, maybe not as much bone or quite the power in the set of that hind leg as our class winner, but a real nice one there in second. The reason we spent more time on the class is because of the heifers coming in third, fourth, and fifth. This is a challenging lineup to get this trio right, and if you want to reshuffle the deck, go for it. You can make a case for it. Here's the way I see them today. The heifer that I've got pulled out here next is a little more the kind I've been using in terms of the balance and the eye appeal and the look. She's a little more my kind in terms of the length and the stature that she has versus the more moderate heifer below her. I like the eye appeal. I like just that look she gives you from the side. Is she the soundest of those? No, she's not. She's a little straighter on both ends. I'd like to loosen her up, and we could soften her up just a touch in terms of her body, especially compared to her taller frame size. I think that's an advantage for the more moderate heifer. I think she's sounder. I do think she's a little deeper, but she carries that muscle in a harder, tighter package. She just comes down her top with me with just a little too much shape, if there's such a thing. She just wants to roll up a little bit there in the middle of her back, not as square in that hip with that extra muscle. And again, a little more compact, whether you like that or not. But for me, I'd like to just stretch her out. But I like the soundness. I like the thickness. Big, cowy, stout one here coming out next. I don't know that we've seen a heifer all day with that kind of body shape in her. She's absolutely massive in terms of her body volume and her capacity. I love the length that she has on her, and she's one of the heifers that I really wanted to see again because, I'll be honest, I misread her a little bit right off the bat in terms of condition. The more I look at this heifer, the more I think she's pretty honest in her condition. At first, I thought she's carrying a bunch, but really look at her in her chest and in the lower third, I think she's real honest in her condition. The issue that I have with her is at the ground. If we could change her in terms of her structure and her bone work, I mean, this one's knocking on the door to win the class. I love the body. I love her on the stand, but she really complicates things for me when we see her move around the ring, and that's where I'd want to see her better today. But that trio of heifers right there, that's a dogfight, and you could do them any way. Nice set of heifers. The young lady that wraps up the class here got another real muscular heifer. I like her size, I like that big old top that she brings to this class. But again, she's one that gets a little more complicated, gives us more issues from a structure standpoint. I'd just like to loosen her up today. Thanks for a little more time on that class. Give them a nice round of applause.
Well, back over here on the South Devon side, gosh, a great yearling heifer class, big bred heifer class here. I think another class that, especially amongst these top pair, I think they warrant a little bit of discussion. And specifically, where I think that where both of them are good is their balance and their look, their quality. Are they different in that regard? Absolutely they are. But I think they're both good there. Now, I think the big difference and why I end up using the heifer that I do to win this class is you get right directly behind those heifers and watch them go away. To me, the heifer that wins is square and how she plant her hock. I think she's more attractive in the set of her hind leg. I think she's truer in her base width and the actual width that she has all the way through. I like the shape and the turn of her body, a heifer that I think is very, very feminine, very attractive. Now, between the pair, she does have a little more chest. She's got just she's a little thicker and a little rounder there about the shape of her neck. I personally still think she's very, very feminine, but that is kind of her problem and why I think you can make that pair close. To me, the heifer that wins is just a little more basic and just a little more fundamental to go ahead and win this particular class. The heifer that's in second, she probably has as much of the wow factor as maybe any of them. I think she is a very, very neat breeding piece because she has really big, good square feet. That heifer's neck sits right out of the top side of her shoulder. I think she's very attractive in the shape of her head, a heifer that has punch and has substance and has power. Like I said, once you get right in behind those cattle and watch them go directly away from you, that heifer really wants to pull her hock in there from behind. I think that heifer's got a little more set to her hind leg. To me, it detracts away from her balance once we get her set into motion. So that's why I end up leaving her second. But boy, a really good pair of heifers there on the top end of this class. The heifer that's in third is another one that I think, again, you talk about just being good and a basic kind of a beef cow. That's where I think she's good. She's deep-bodied. She's easy fleshing. Where I wish we could change her up is I want to change the shape of her feet. That heifer gets a little long-toed for me. She'll start to get a little curly in the set of her feet up front, and especially in relation to those other two, she's probably just a little plainer in terms of her look. But again, a good basic kind of a female there to go for, wind up in third. Young lady with the black heifer, I think that is a decision there between third and fourth because I think you have a very nice heifer that winds up fourth in this class. She's sound structured. She's good built. A level built, really attractive kind of a heifer there that does have the advantage between that pair in the squareness to her feet. Now, same deal with that. I think that heifer, once you get in behind her, she's flatter and she doesn't quite have as much power, just substance and punch there. Also, just a little coarse there in the shape and structure of her teat in terms of her udder. But boy, another really nice heifer there for the young lady. I wish her the best of luck with that heifer down the road once she goes into production. And then the young lady's red heifer that's going to go ahead and round us out. Initially, when she first came in, boy, she hit me with a ton of power, a lot of substance, and just outright shape and turn. The longer we go here, and especially once we get him on the first lap, that heifer is the tightest in regards to her structure. That heifer, I also wish we could freshen up in terms of her body condition, especially through the lower third of her body. That's why I end up leaving her fifth within this class, but certainly a nice female that I wish you the best of luck. Let's congratulate those young people here in that yearling class on a job well done.
Your results from Class 104 of Junior Yearling Heifers within your South Devon show. In fifth place, entry 2175 from Addison Kilm. Fourth place, entry 2168 from Jillian Knepp Mount. Third place goes to 2174, that is Megan Fellbaum. Second place, entry 2176 from Lauren Zabel. And your class winner is entry 2173 from Sierra Steinlicht. At this time, we will bring back some of our first and seconds for our Grand Champion and Reserve Champion South Devon Junior Heifer selections. Back over to the North Show ring for the Miniature Hereford Show. The results from Class 108A. In sixth place, we had Flora Insico. Fifth place, Jackson Place. Fourth place, for Wiley Farm LLC. Third place, Brian Moore. Second place, Callie Rummel. And your class winner goes to Hannah Hogan. In the ring at this time is now Class 108B of Spring Intermediate Heifers. We have an entry from Piper McIntyre, Jim Phillips, John Carter, Mesa Arnold, Ada Pence, and Blake Buck.
Well, this dark red heifer that starts off our class of mini Hereford heifers is a nice one, and I think she's really nice on the stand. She's big, she's extremely long-sided and extended, she's very well presented, she's fresh in her look and in her hair coat, she's got a good body shape to her. Again, I love all the stretch and extension, good muscle shape in that heifer. She's a heifer that we've seen cattle that are sounder today. She just wants to kind of waddle, and there's a tightness to her that I'd like to change if we could just loosen her up and give her a little more freedom. But still yet, I think she's high quality, I think she's nicely balanced, and she brings enough positives to the table that we're going to go ahead and use her to win the class. A slightly more moderate heifer is going to end up placing second in what I think is a close pair between second and third. This is a stout featured heifer. I like her shape, I like her body, and I like her bone. She's really a massive kind of heifer in terms of the width that she has at both ends. She's very, very stout structured. What she's not is as elegant and ladylike as the heifers in first and third. If we could just stretch her out from end to end, set her neck up a little better on her shoulder, I think that'd be a game changer for that heifer. As a judge and somebody that shows cattle, you can't help but daydream about what if. And this is a what if heifer for me in third. What if you could get your hands on her and just take her for yourself and take her home for your kids to show? There's one that I think is intriguing. Today she's pretty green, she's very, very youthful, but man, has she got the right pieces in the right places. She's as good balanced and as good patterned as that first place heifer. She's as sound structured as anything that we have in here. She doesn't get a chance to show herself off a whole lot, but I guarantee you, that is one that I'd put my money on for the long run right there. I think that's a real intriguing heifer in third. Then a big old massive heifer is going to come around next. She's got size and she's got power. She's got tremendous body and volume and capacity. She's big bone and she's thick from end to end. What she's not is the fanciest heifer in terms of her femininity and look. I'd like to just sweeten her up in that front end, and she too's one that could move a little bit looser for us today. The pair that's coming out next, the pair of exhibitors who's coming out next, nice job today. The pair of exhibitors who's coming out next have got a real practical kind of a heifer that's got a lot of that length of body that I like to see. I really appreciate the stretch and the extension that she has. She's a tall fronted heifer, and she maintains that height real evenly from front to rear. She's one that wants to drop her rump a little bit, get her back legs underneath her. She too could have better balance. Young man that's wrapping up this class, I guarantee you he has done a good job with the heifer. That's the whitest white we've seen on a lot. Her hair's worked really nicely. This isn't a fitting contest, but you can't help but brag on a kid that's done a good job taking care of that heifer. She's fresh, she's not over conditioned. Good job with the way you've managed her, young man. Congratulations to this set of kids.
Well, folks, here we are, champion drive of the South Devon show. Been a fun day, and I know we still have showmanship to work through here, but a really fun day. I guess to start really quick, and not to make a big spiel by any stretch, but big thank you to the National Western for allowing me to judge not only yesterday but today. Sincerely appreciate that. As a kid who, I've never missed the National Western. This is my 29th National Western Stock Show, and so I've gone here and I've dreamed about getting to grab a hold of a microphone in this ring, and even though just working through these shows, it's so cool for me. And heck, even as a kid that watches shows and especially coaches a judging team, it's neat to even get the opportunity to share the ring with Jake Scott over on the other side. To me, that is so cool, and so thank you to the National Western for allowing me to do that. But man, a really, really good set. You guys in the South Devon breed should be proud of the cattle that you put in front of me today and the cattle that you're raising. This is a show that I was interested to see what we'd get. And to you guys in the South Devon breed, kudos to you and congratulations to you. Keep the pedal to the floor and keep making cattle like this. Congratulations to you there. The other thing that I think is cool amongst your breed is I've kind of not paid attention to the side of the ring a ton, but I do think it is really cool, kind of the brotherhood that happens back there. I think that is a really neat thing within this particular breed. So kudos to you on that. A good set of heifers out here, and for me, there's two of them that are going to play in contention for champion and reserve. And even though there's cattle that I think are very good, there's 2 of them that are going to play here. So with that said, I'm gonna quit talking so we can get into showmanship. But even more importantly than that, show you the 2 South Devon heifers that I like out here. So let's go ahead and give these young people a big round of applause. Best of luck in your open show tomorrow. Best of luck in your bull sales this spring. A great job to these young people.
Your grand champion South Devon Junior heifer comes from Sierra Steinlicht. Your reserve grand champion South Devon Junior heifer also comes from that same class. That is class 104. That is Lauren Zabel. Now we'll hear from our judge, Jake Scott, over to the miniature Hereford show.
For our mini Hereford enthusiasts, put your hands together for this fine division right here. Good job to these kids. I think this is an evenly matched set of heifers. There's a lot of things that you like about both of them, a lot of the same things you like about both of them. I like their size. I like their length. I think they're very comparable in terms of their muscle shape, the bone that they have, and are just kind of similar in terms of type and kind. It's the differences that's going to sort them today, and here's the differences that I see. For as much as I like the length and the power and the substance, you would have to acknowledge that the heifer up here in the front is maybe not as tidy in her front end as maybe that heifer is right behind her. Maybe just a little more shoulder to her, just not as cool and cocky of a look sometimes. But don't hear me say that there's anything wrong with her front end. I think she's real nicely balanced. The gentleman's young man's heifer here that comes next. Lots of power and lots of shape to her, but I think you'd also agree that when you put her in motion, there's a little difference in the structure and the looseness of the skeleton in those heifers. She's a little tighter than what I prefer in the way that she moves. And so because this heifer, I think, is just better at the ground and has so much good to her from a power standpoint, she's going to be your division champion. Nice job. Then as we look at the young lady in the jacket back here for reserve, powerfully built heifer, a more conventional, traditional heifer in terms of her height and in terms of her length, but it's hard for me to get away from the extension and the power and the stretch of the dark red heifer. Young man, she's your reserve division.
Your champion spring intermediate heifer comes from class 108A. That is entry 4343 from Hannah Hogan. The reserve spring intermediate heifer comes from class 108B. That is entry 4288 from Blake Buck. We'll go ahead and get our ring reset over in our miniature Herefords, and we'll start with class 109 of winter intermediate heifers. Miniature Hereford show in the ring has class 109. These are winter intermediate heifers. They have calved January 1st through March 31st of 2022. We have 3 entries within this class. We have an entry from Deacon James, Bryce White, and Connor Neal. These 3 animals are the only animals within the division, so the first and seconds within this class will become your champion and reserve champion winter intermediate heifers.
Well, if you have my job today, I think the decision that you have to make and the question you have to ask yourself is the importance of power and cowiness. And once you make that decision, I think this is the heifer that ends up winning the class. She is the most powerful heifer, especially between the 2 heifers in first and second here. She's so much better in terms of her body, top and width of pins, just the power, the squareness, and the shape that she has from front to rear totally is intriguing to me. And I think she still handles all that power well in terms of the way she moves, her structural soundness, her flexibility and length. Is she as long-fronted and clean-chested as the heifer in second? No, she isn't, and that's what makes this a close pair. And young man, you've got a beautifully designed heifer here. Go ahead and pull her around here and show her off. You've got a beautifully designed heifer here that absolutely is perfectly fit and presented very, very nicely today. I love that about her. She is longer necked, she is flatter shouldered, she is prettier headed, and she is cleaner chested than our class winner. Don't hear me say that this is a light muscled or light bodied heifer, but by comparison, she does get out measured by that more powerful, more massive heifer in first, and particularly for me, when you get behind her, it's the width from hooks to pins, maybe the depth of quarter that you see, the difference in those 2 heifers is where I really make up my mind. I love your heifer, she's striking, and if you want a real pretty one, she's the pretty one in class. And then young man, you drew up in kind of a buzzsaw kind of a class here. You've got a dang nice one. You're not showing a last place heifer. She's wide, she's thick, she's got a great top and a square hip. Today, not as pretty as the heifer in second, not as powerful as the heifer in first, so she's going to end up third, but you're going to leave the ring leading a dang nice one. Keep your head held high. Congrats.
Your results from Class 109 of Winter Intermediate Heifers: in third place, entry 4359 from Deacon James. Second place, and the reserve Winter Intermediate Heifer, entry 4394 from Connor Neal. And your class winner and champion Winter Intermediate Heifer goes to entry 4447 from Bryce White. At this time, we will now bring back all of our division champions for our judge, Mr. Jake Scott, to select the grand champion and reserve grand champion heifers. In your miniature Hereford show, returning for your grand champion female, in coming in would be your champion fall junior heifer calf, that is entry 4395 from Connor Neal. Your champion summer junior heifer calf is entry 4323 from Canyon Dops. Your champion spring junior heifer calf, entry 4434 from Brenna Thorson. Your champion early spring junior heifer calf, entry 4451 from Bryce White. Your champion winter junior heifer calf, entry 4443 from Berkeley Went. Your champion fall intermediate heifer, entry 4422 from Cow Swamp Creek Farms. Your champion summer intermediate heifer, entry 4322 from Amelia Cragen. Your champion spring intermediate heifer, entry 4343 from Hannah Hogan. And your champion winter intermediate heifer, entry 4447 from Bryce White. These are the champions that are in consideration for your grand champion heifers. Your reserve champions that are in contention for the reserve grand champion: your reserve fall junior heifer calf, entry 4438 from Brenna Thorson. Your reserve summer junior heifer calf, entry 4287 from Briggs Miller Ranch. Your reserve spring junior heifer calf, entry 4403 from Bristol Pence. Your reserve early spring junior heifer calf, entry 4450 from Bryce White. Your reserve winter junior heifer calf, entry 4325 from Canyon Dops. Your reserve fall intermediate heifer, entry 4358 from Deacon James. Your reserve summer intermediate heifer, entry 4435 from Brenna Thorson. Your reserve spring intermediate heifer, entry 4288 from Blake Buck. And your reserve winter intermediate heifer is entry 4394 from Connor Neal. These are the champions in contention for your grand champion and reserve grand champion miniature Hereford heifer.
As we get into senior showmanship here on the South Devon side, great set of showmen, really great set of showmen. I think the hardest part about showmanship is it's so subjective, and you could have a lot of different opinions for a lot of different things. And so throughout the day, understand this is just my opinion on who I think the best showmen are, because realistically, I think we could make an argument for several of these young people to be champion in reserve. I'm not going to go through and necessarily talk each individual kid. I will say just a couple big group comments on some things that I appreciate and that I like is, again, obviously making sure that show side hind leg is further back than the offside, keeping their top line correct and level, their head up and right, and then how you hold your halter is something that's important to me as well. Keeping your palm up, if you will, on how you hold your halter, and then on top of it, you have to have some showmanship and kind of some pizzazz, for a lack of a better way to put it. I think there's a couple young people out here that do a very, very nice job of that. The two that suit me the best is going to go ahead and be the young lady up front. I think she's done a great job. She'll go ahead and be your champion here today. So congratulations to you, young lady. And then the other one that suits me very, very well, she might have not got along necessarily the best in every class throughout our heifer show today, but I think she's a very good showman. Young lady with the red heifer, you'll go ahead and be reserved. Congratulations to you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, as we move now into our selection of the Grand Champion Miniature Hereford female here at the National Western Stock Show, the first thing I'd like for you to do is to give every exhibitor you've seen come through this ring here today a really well-deserved round of applause. What an awesome show. It's been a great morning, and it's always a great privilege as a judge of any breed, but particularly these mini Herefords, to be asked to share your opinion. I tell you what, it'll make a better evaluator out of you. Your cattle are so evenly matched in so many of the classes, you've got to cinch your hat down pretty tight and study these cattle and do a lot of thinking out here in the ring, because sometimes the differences are pretty subtle, and I think that says a lot to the depth of quality in your breed and how many of the cattle have so many of the important traits, the basics, the foundational traits that make cattle good. In lieu of talking about all the cattle again, I've tried to be very thorough with my descriptions, but before we select your champions, I just want to compliment your breed on how well of a job I think you guys have done building your show program. As much as any breed that I have the chance to evaluate, in my opinion, I think your miniature Hereford breed is perhaps the most family-oriented breed that we have in the industry today. You're willing and open-minded enough to start your kids when they're knee-high. Now, maybe mom or dad or brother or sister has to help lead them in here, but if we're not getting these kids interested and started at an early age, there's 1,000 other things that are competing for their attention. So I think it's a real smart play on the part of your leadership to get your youth involved and hooked at such an early age. And then you see your juniors, and there's such a large group of juniors here in every one of these open classes, but also the adults are so active and so involved. I really hope, and I want to mention again, even if you know this, you should hear it again. Boy, these things don't happen by themselves. Building a program like that, getting the kind of foundation underneath you guys that you have, takes a lot of leadership, and it takes a lot of participation. And you guys have got it all going for you right now. I really want to encourage you to keep that momentum going. You guys have something that's very special. You have something that's very different, and you have something that's very unique. And just as an outside observer, I'm very envious, and I'm very proud for all you folks, and I'm very, very happy to see what you got going on here. In a world that seems to have gone crazy, this is really encouraging. This is really positive. This is the one place in my life that feels real normal these days when we come to a stock show. I love the people involved. I love the breed that you guys have got going here. The cattle speak for themselves. I've tried to describe them, but I just want to give you guys a huge pat on the back for what you've got going on. I hope you make as much progress in the next 10 years that you've made in the last 10 years. We've got more cattle to judge today, but before we got any farther, I just wanted to make those comments to you guys. Give yourselves a round of applause. We'll find you a champion.
Your grand champion heifer is also your champion winter junior heifer. That is entry 4443 from Berkeley Went. Rolling into consideration for the reserve will be the reserve winter junior heifer calf, entry 4325 from Kenyon Dops. Your reserve grand champion heifer comes from your champion summer intermediate heifer division. That is entry 4322 from Amelia Cragen. At this time, we will roll right into our cow-calf pairs before we start any pictures. So again, we're rolling right into our cow-calf pairs within our miniature Hereford show.
Well, over here on the South Devon ring, as we get into junior showmanship here, three good young people, three really good young people that have done a good job all morning. And so I congratulate all of them. And just kind of briefly talking through, since we just have the three and they're the youngest group we've got, I'll share my opinion, probably just a little heavier than maybe what I did in the seniors there. Young lady here at the back with the red heifer, great job. I think that young lady, she's got a heifer calf. She's not your dancing partner today. She wants to fight you pretty hard. But young lady, you're doing a good job. Once you get her stuck, I think she looks the part. You do a great job of making sure that heifer's presented very, very well. She just wants to fight you, maybe a little hard, but good job to you. And then the young man right in the middle. The lone boy of the group here, I think does a really good job as well. Where feet and legs are positioned and set up, I think he does great. That heifer looks the part. I think one thing that we could change up maybe just a little bit is bump up the intensity just a little bit, just to get her head up just a little more, because that's that heifer's problem, is she's got a little more chest, she's a little deeper through her neck, and so if we can get her head up and make her look just a little bit more arrogant, a little more proud, to me that helps that heifer's look come together a lot better. But young man, you do a good job, best of luck to you. Then the young lady there up front, I think another one that all throughout the day, all throughout the morning that we've gotten to see these young people, she's had that heifer looking very, very well, where her head and her neck are positioned, how she holds her halter is good, how she handles her stick is really good. So a really good set of young people here in junior showmanship, and no matter how this shakes out, I hope everybody can give them a great big congratulations here on a job well done, the way I like them. Young lady, you're going to go ahead and be our champion. Young man, you'll go ahead and be reserve. Congratulations to these young people here on a job well done.
Congratulations to our South Devon and Pound Makers Show exhibitors. This does conclude the portion of today's events for the South Devon Show. A reminder that all cattle releases come from the barn steward shed located between doors 21 and 22 outside. The releases are required to leave the grounds. So again, any exhibitors looking to leave, you must seek out a cattle release from the barn steward shed located between barn doors 21 and 22 outside.